That is an election site. This is the Trinity House at 180 Trinity Oak Street in Binghamton, New York. And this image is taken from the election location. And on the door is this sign. This is a violation of your rights. This is discouraging. When you hear Democrats say, oh, we have to fight discouraging voters, anything that would stop people from voting, this is what is discouraging voting. This is why about 25% of people actually voted in 2021. I don't think most people realize that. And I'm getting the final numbers from the Board of Elections to confirm that. But about 25% of voters actually came out to vote. And it's because of things, in part, besides the fact that no one has trust in our government, we have lost faith in our government because of what our government is doing, both in 2020 and in 2021. But it's also because of things like this. Please be considerate and wear a mask, whether you are vaccinated or not, while in the building. Let me ask you, if you didn't have a mask, you walked up to that door to go in and to be able to vote, what would you say? Would you still walk into that door? Would you still think that you could go in and vote? I'm asking a very serious question. Do you think, with that message, if you did not have a mask in hand, perhaps because you were vaccinated, maybe you're not vaccinated, but you don't have a mask, which is not required by New York state law, that is not required by federal law, it is not a requirement of law anywhere, it is not a law, and you went to walk on out, and you went to go and vote, and you saw this sign, would that stop you from voting? Would that make you say, I can't go in there? It's a very serious question. Because if the answer is yes, if you even hesitate, if you say that that would make you hesitate in front of that door, trying to decide whether you can or cannot go in, and what would be the repercussions of going in without a mask, if that even comes into your mind and you had that thought, then that has suppressed your vote. That has affected your ability to vote. And that is a crime in New York State. And guess who allowed that sign to be on the door? The New York State Board of Education. New York State Board of Elections, the BOE. The New York State Board of Elections, when they went down to that site, they were there in person, and they saw the sign. Hello, and thank you for calling into the program. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss. Who is calling in?
My name is Jeremiah.
Hey, Jeremiah.
How you doing?
I'm glad to have you on. And so, Jeremiah, we spoke. What would you like to talk about? Let me say it that way.
I just wanted to call in and give a personal example of, you started talking about the mask
Yes.
thing on your show just now, and I had contacted you earlier in the week about something that happened to me personally, and
yeah, I didn't want to mention that unless you wanted to. I didn't want to out you on that. So yes, right. You did speak to me about this. Go ahead, tell us what happened.
So I live up in Shenango County, and I'm a disabled gentleman. Mm-hmm. So my mother and I, we went to go vote later in the evening. I'd say a little after 8:00 p.m. on election night. We show up to vote. There's no signs on the door talking about masks or anything like that, but I don't wear a mask typically. Mm-hmm. And when I went to go in to vote, I was stopped at the front doors of I think it's called St. Bart's Church.
Right.
That's what the voting place was. And the two women that stopped me said that they came at me with basically opened a whole new box of masks and handed the whole thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take it. And they said, sorry, you have to wear a mask to vote. And I was taken aback by it. I didn't get rude, but I stood, pretty firm in my ground. And I said, we can do one of two things here. Mm-hmm. You can let me in to vote, or you can give me a provisional ballot, and I'm going to fill it out right here. Mm-hmm. So then there's one lady, she was wearing glasses. She walked back into the voting area mm-hmm. and huddled in the corner or whatever with a couple other people that were there. I guess they were poll workers or supervisors. I don't know. And while they were there talking, I couldn't hear them. The other lady stayed at the front with me, to make sure that I couldn't go in and vote. I let my mom through. She was wearing a mask. That's her choice. I have no problem if you choose. Mm-hmm. But and then finally the lady came back out and said, okay, we're going to let you vote. We're going to let you vote. Not, okay, yeah, come on in, it's fine. No, we're going to let you vote. But you have to wait here until it's empty, and you can only go over here in this corner and vote. As I was facing the front of the building, it'd be in the left corner, which doesn't really matter.
Well, no, it's important for people who know that location. It's very important. But Jeremiah, let me stop you for 1 second in this.
Yeah.
And I want to ask a very important question. Mm-hmm. In that moment, because you've just described to us, and we are not, as a channel, we're not saying you did or did not go through this experience, because mm-hmm. I can't. But in that moment that you, as you have told us, you have been told first that you cannot do your lawful right of being able to vote. Then you are told, okay, we're going to allow you to vote only under certain very specific conditions. And you have been now placed on the side, shunned from society, and made to wait until an accommodation that these people in charge of the election process were there. Let me ask you, do you feel like that is affecting the way you voted?
Not the actual physical what I cast on the ballot per se, because it didn't change my thought process, mm-hmm. my ideology, but affecting my desire to want to go vote in the future not midterm, yes. but midterm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm disabled. I walk with a cane. I got a severe breathing problem from a chemical burnt lungs, so it's difficult for me to get out and move around and spend time out and do things.
So it makes you feel less likely, or
correct.
Let me not put words in your mouth. Did it make you feel like, if this is what I have to go through, I'm less inclined to go out and vote again?
Yes. It was a struggle that day for me to go out to begin with, which is why I waited till later at night. And I said, you know what, let's just do it. Let's go. If I have to go through this every time, or even every other time, well, is it even worth it?
Okay. So that's your mindset at that moment. So
yes.
What we know at that moment, as you said, is you've now been placed on the side, which is going to make you stand out, because other people are walking in and out and voting and looking over in the corner, I would imagine, because I would, and go, what's that guy doing over there? So now you're standing out. You're being ostracized. You have been targeted. You have been suppressed, because that, by definition, is suppression. What happened next?
So then I ended up eventually entering into the building, so there's two doors. There's the external door you come in, it's like a little foyer, and then you go into the main rec hall or whatever it's called. So I ended up going into the main rec hall, and I went over to the side where they said that they allowed me to vote without a mask on. And there was a different lady over there, and she's like, oh, you could sit in this chair, but you could only use this machine right here, which is the one over by where I was. Whether it was a designation for a ward or not, I have no idea. But specifically, hey, this is the one you can use, kind of don't go over anywhere else, just right here. Yeah, actually, in fact, sit right here in this chair and fill out your ballot here and put it in this machine there.
Okay, so let me stop you again because I want to be clear about this for people who are listening. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you were brought into an area, you were isolated, you were told you unlike anyone else who was voting, and I want to make sure I'm understanding this. So no one else was experiencing this isolation to get your ballot, to fill out your ballot, and an isolation to use a specific machine. Did anyone else use that machine besides you when you cast your ballot?
They said they let my mother do it, actually. They said you can use it because you're with him. But they turned other people, like there was another person that had tried coming in behind me, and they funneled the person away from me. They're like, no, come over here, go to this side, or come over here and use this machine. Come over here away from this, come over here away.
Oh my God. So they took you and they literally had you use a different machine and kept people away from where you were.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Which means that, so that's manipulation of your vote.
Thanks. I don't have any faith in the process, to be honest with you, but that's...
Well, I'm just understanding, and folks, if you think I'm wrong, and everyone who's watching and can comment on this, it sounds like this is not just, they went from suppressing your vote by isolating you to then manipulating your vote because you are now put into another situation. You're being treated separate. And some would say separate and equal, which we know by law, because we've gone through this before with the Supreme Court, separate is not equal. We had a whole Supreme Court case about this. It's called the Civil Rights Movement. So, and this is why we have Justice Department trying to make sure that we don't do these things anymore, because they were like Jim Crow laws. And as an individual, and I don't know what color of skin you are, I don't care what your race is, ethnicity, I don't care. You don't have to mention it. It's not important to the question, to the discussion. But it's that same mentality as we saw in Jim Crow, where you have to go through special hoops and special treatment to be able to vote. And that was determined by law, and we have an entire division of the Department of Justice to fight against doing exactly what you're describing. If it's accurate, then that's illegal.
I would agree with that.
Okay.
I think it is illegal, but it didn't just end there, because after I was actually in the process of filling out the ballot, and the lady, not the two ladies at the front who first confronted me, but the lady who actually handed me my ballot, she was cordial and discussing, and she says to me, "I'm happy you came late, because if you hadn't have come late, we wouldn't have let you vote. There's so many fewer people in here, so there's not a risk to everybody. You're not a risk to everybody because there's so many fewer people in here. But if you had not come this late, we wouldn't have let you vote."
What?
Verbatim.
Okay,
Verbatim.
See, and I know because just so the audience watching, I know we've spoken by email.
Yes, sir.
Once before, and you told me this, and I was outraged then, and I'm outraged again in hearing it, because there is no way that is not illegal what happened. That is an outrage.
I agree, and it upset me to the point. I mean, it had more than an effect on me, though, because see, when I have to remain calm, I need to be, not professional, but cordial and nice and calm, because if I'm not, then
that justifies their action, and they get to say, "Well, you're disrupting the peace, and therefore you can't." But then let me before we go any further, I got to mention something, because I am on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, DLive. The internet overlords,
yes, sir,
will require me to mention that we are neither confirming nor denying what you are saying. We are not indicating that anyone should not vote at any point. In fact, we are saying the opposite, that people should be allowed to vote, and that nothing should interfere with someone's ability to vote for whomever they want to vote for, which is something that this channel has always supported. We have never asked people to vote for any party or any ideology, though we do criticize certain ideologies and certain policies. So I want to be very clear about that so that all the internet overlords know we're not trying to suppress anyone or to resist anyone or suggest any kind of interference. We're just highlighting what you are speaking to us about and making sure that it's clear for the public.
Yes, sir.
So I apologize. I need to mention that because of otherwise, and I still could get another week or two being shut down because of this conversation, but we're going to have it. So keep going.
So then not only did it have like an impact on me at the time and then afterwards, right? Frustration, upsetness, kind of like what the hell. And then my mother, she was with me, right? And the conversation I had to her leaving the polling. Actually, I got to say something else.
Yes.
Before I even got to that point.
Okay.
While I was putting the ballot into the machine scanner, there was a gentleman that came out from somewhere further back into the building. And the lady who told me that, if you had come earlier, we wouldn't let you vote, etc. She had to explain to him why I was voting without a mask. And one of the ladies from up front who initially confronted me came over and explained to him why I wasn't voting with a mask. And I had to, I guess he must have been someone. Okay, this is an assumption. He must have been someone in charge because they were trying to be very convincing and apologetic for the situation to him. Because when he came out, he was looking at me and started coming over towards me, and then these two women spoke to him, and I could overhear a majority of their conversation. He was quiet most of the time, just continued to look at me while they were explaining my presence there. So
they were being very deferential to this individual, but
yes,
this seemed to be an individual of authority. Okay.
Yeah. So to me, it showed like a hierarchy of the whole situation, right? So you've got people that are doing their job, okay, and then you've got a person doing their job. Well, two women doing their job at the front, a woman doing her job at handing me the ballot and etc. And then somebody else comes in, and these people that were just doing their job are now going to this person and explaining why they were doing their job or why this was happening. So to me, it spoke to of like a hierarchy of command or people in charge or something along those lines. I mean, that's neither here nor there, but to me, it was like, oh, well, somebody in charge is here because you're reporting to them. So why is this still okay?
It's not okay at all. And this is aggravating to me. And I make the connection to Jim Crow because it's the same nature of action. It is still the same kind of suppression. It is still the same kind of intimidation. And we're seeing this in many aspects of our lives right now. And they're using now based on what you're describing, it would sound like that someone is using the pandemic medication mandates as a means to be able to dictate and micromanage your life and to punish you, not for breaking a law, because no law was broken, but to punish you for not doing what you were told.
Right. And not only punish for not doing, like the idea of punish for not doing what you're told or have like a cooling effect on election, or right, but also, so this is the point I wanted to get to about when I was leaving, speaking with my mother. Like, we're leaving the polling place, walking out to the front, and I said to her, so, hey, I wasn't, like, rude or gruff or upsetting, right? I just stood my ground. I was firm, because she heard what I had said initially. She was like, no, you were fine, but you should have just put a mask on. It didn't matter. But to me...
But why comply? Why be forced to comply?
Correct. Why am I... And you could say, oh, it's defiant. Oh, you're not caring about... I'm not sick. I don't feel like I need to wear a mask if I'm not sick. And now you're telling me I can't vote unless I wear it. Come on.
Well, first of all, it's not a law. It's not a law.
Right. How did we get here?
There's no requirement that you must wear a mask. There is no law that says you must have the pandemic medication, and there is no mandate for that by law. This is not something that was agreed upon by the public. We didn't have a referendum on this, nor was anyone instructed. By the way, I'm going to ask you about your experience here. I want to mention mine.
Okay.
So when I went to, and I saw the sign, you may have seen it in the video, when I went to the location to vote, a gentleman was walking in, an older gentleman. He had a mask. He went to his car, got an extra mask, and gave it to me because he saw me reading the sign and my obvious displeasure and my hesitation at that moment, trying to figure out, well, what are they going to do? What's going to happen because of this? What are other people doing because of this? So he said, well, I get what you're saying, but I have an extra mask, so here's one for you. I walked in. I was able to vote. I asked the poll watchers there, saying, okay, is this stopping people from coming in? They said they had no idea and that it wasn't a law. I talked to the Board of Education as soon as I walked out of there, and they promised that someone would have come down and look at the sign and possibly remove it. This is from the Board of Elections itself. Did you speak to the Board of Education? Board of Elections?
No, I called and I left a message. I'm going to call again this week. I've sent Facebook message to there's a congresswoman, I forget her name, in New York State. She said if there's any, like, you feel voter suppression or anything, contact me. I've sent a message to other people, but I haven't had any reply back other than speaking with you about it, sir. Okay,
so you're in the New York 22nd District.
Yeah, I'm up in Shenango County, yes, sir.
Right. So that means your Congresswoman is Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. Tenney. And so you should contact her offices and make them aware of this. I would say do it in writing as well as in phone. Not because I don't think they won't listen, but you want to have duplication and a record that shows, hey, I contacted you on X day to make you aware of this situation and to ask for what can be done about this situation. I would also say write a letter to the Board of Elections to also make them aware.
Oh, not just call. You're saying writing a letter so that way there is the right documentation that got sent or you received.
You can do it with email. Email is accepted nowadays as well. You're going to keep a record of that. This way it shows exactly a timestamp of when you sent it, what kind of response you got back. It's all official. You can keep that on the side. And this way you can document what is and is not being said in completeness to your issue, your allegation, as they would call it, about this. I expect that people would have a response, and they should have a response. Our elected leaders must have a response, and if they don't, we can then hold them accountable because you have the proof, not just your word here today. Again, we don't dispute what you're saying, but we can neither confirm nor deny.
Right. But it's like anything else. It's almost like being in with a legal proceeding. People can say something, but until you have more than just one person saying it, like proof that it happened or a response acknowledging that it happened or witnesses.
You have witnesses. Now, if they're doing their job, they should investigate this. They'll probably ask your mother. They'll probably ask the poll workers. And they'll go into it. But that's what they're supposed to do. And I know that when I made my call, which I have the timestamp recorded, and I know exactly, but I have a different medium. I'm a member of the press. I'm making it aware to everyone the experience I went through. But this is the part of the problem that we need to address. Because while everyone in the news media is talking about, well, people of color are having their votes suppressed, they're not talking about, but people who may or may not be vaccinated, and again, that's your private health care. You don't have to tell me. It doesn't matter. You may or may not, but like the sign that I experienced and addressed and I took a photo of, people are being suppressed and they're being intimidated because, you're not complying. Compliance is not a prerequisite for voting. And that's a problem. And that is the problem right there.
Yeah. Well, it never used to be a requirement for voting. Unfortunately, it seems like it
Not since the Jim Crow laws. And supposedly we had fixed that from the 1960s. And looking at the voting rolls in most states, like in Texas, where 64% of registered voters who actually go out to vote are white, and 65% of registered voters who actually go out and vote in Texas are white, and 64% who actually go out, who are registered and go out and vote, are black. It works. We've corrected a lot of these problems. People are voting at about the same levels. But I have to wonder, is your experience so unique? Is my experience so unique when we look at the fact that the voting numbers, as best as I can understand, 25% of people voted in 2021.
Which is low.
It's extremely low. Normally, in an off year, in the odd years, it's normally like 35-ish, 37%. The initial numbers at the moment look like 25, maybe 27%. Is it because people were going through the experience you had, the experience I had? Is this why 10% of people didn't show up that normally do? It's a really troubling question.
I can't speak for other people, but I can tell you that initially, that when I'm first confronted by, hey, you need to wear a mask to vote. Here's then someone holding a package of masks in your face. You kind of, well, I want to vote, so I should probably put it. It's like the first thought, but no, I'm not putting a damn mask on. I don't have to put a mask on to vote. So I'm sure if there were people that were less steadfast in their position or more, didn't want to cause a stir or afraid of confrontation, I'm sure that I can't say I'm sure, that they probably would be turned away, because I can understand why I would have been turned away if I wasn't steadfast in my position.
And you should never be put in that position. No one should be put in that position. That is my personal statement. That is the statement of this channel. No one should have to go through this. That is wrong, and we believe it is illegal. It is definitely immoral, and needs to be spoken about. And more people need to find out about this. And I put in a comment before, and I want to say to everyone again, if nothing else, clip this video, clip this live stream after it's done, send this out to people, or tell people right now to share this with people on all social media and have them react to this. This is wrong, and it's being pushed by the government. This is coming from the Board of Elections. This is coming from our election process. There is a problem here, and we need to be shouting at the top of our lungs saying, this is unacceptable. I think this is unacceptable. What happened to you, Jeremiah? I think this is insane, and it's infuriating to me.
Well, the same thing with you having a sign. You didn't have someone standing at the front door saying, don't come in. But in essence, you had an extension of somebody standing at the front door saying, don't come in.
Well, it's the full power of the government saying, don't enter this location unless you comply.
Yep.
And I was made to feel that I had to comply. And yeah, I did argue afterwards. I did take off the mask afterwards, but that was after the fact. What about people? And when it comes to politics, well, generally in life, I'm a pretty authoritative, I'm a pretty open, and some would even say confrontational individual. Fair enough. So yeah, I'm going to challenge the authority on something that I think is illegal. Most people don't.
Yeah.
That is uncommon. You, Jeremiah, are uncommon. Most people would walk away. And that's not good for America. That's not good for democracy. That's not good for our way of life, our society. It has so many problems on so many levels. And I feel really bad that you had to go through that experience.
Yeah. I hope it was a two-off situation, yours and mine. But I've got a feeling it wasn't.
It wasn't. I've heard from other people with other issues during the 2021 election. Various, not necessarily our experiences directly, but others. But again, how many people walked up to that location? I can tell you that they were down about 30% in terms of in-person voting at that location. I know it. It's my regular location, and I know the total number of votes in that location. It was down, about 20, 30%. The only difference I see is there was that sign. And I have to wonder, how much did that add to it? Besides the fact that people were generally pissed off with the government and voting.
Yeah, it was a unique year.
Yeah, well, it's upsetting. Now, Jeremiah, I want you to stay in touch with us on this channel.
All right.
As you get responses, please write the letters to the Board of Elections, to Congresswoman Claudia Tenney, asking for some follow-up on this. We've already put some documentation of our own out there so that we can follow up on this, because that's the only way. We have to hold them accountable.
Right.
And we have to act on it. So as long as you're acting on it, we can then follow up on it and say something needs to be done, because this should never happen again.
Yeah, I'll keep you apprised of the situation, and I appreciate you being willing to hear what I had, hearing about my experience.
No, absolutely. That's what this program is about, because these are important issues. It affects us all. I mean, the next time could be me, could be someone watching this program, could be someone a progressive, it could be a libertarian, it could be anyone for any reason, because if they can do it for the reasons we experienced, what else can they pick out and go, well, you didn't wear a tie today. I don't like your sneakers. Your pants are saggy. You're a woman. You're gay. You're not a woman. You're not gay. You're not trans. It could be any reason.
And anything could be a reason for I guess it would be would it be disenfranchised? I don't think it'd be suppression. It wouldn't be disenfranchisement. It'd be suppression.
Well, it would be both.
Okay.
It would be both. But that's going a little more into the legality of it. But you know what? If I don't mind. If I have to go to court for that, I don't mind. If this is something that, and I want the major news media to cover this, and they won't.
No.
Folks, you're watching this right now. The major news media knows about this. I've spoken to people. I have contacts, many of them in the major news media. They won't touch this story. They're not going to push this forward. They're not going to tell you about this, and they don't care. Especially since they're going to say, well, it's moot because we already voted. Let me ask you one other thing, Jeremiah, before I let you go, and other people can call in with their thoughts. But let me ask you this. Do you feel like this is moot now because you voted?
No.
Do you feel it's over now?
No, because two reasons. One, the area that I'm in was typically, it's more rural, and it's, more typically right-leaning, right? But for this to happen in an area that's supposedly more conservative, more right-leaning, that makes me wonder, well, wait a minute. There's no law saying you have to wear a mask to vote, but you're saying you have to wear a mask to vote. It makes me confused. And then the second thing is, what's going to happen next time, or what's going to happen when it's like a national election and the
like the midterms in 2022?
Yeah, right. It's like, what's going to happen then?
That's supposed to be one of the big votes. So what would they do when the Democrats are on and because they're the party in power? But you say this for Republicans as well, or any other party. So I don't want it to be isolated to that.
No.
But what happens when the next big election comes out? You're deciding who's going to have control of the House of Representatives, the Senate, and or the presidency, and then all of a sudden this happens. What happens then?
Bad things happen because you turn, but you don't just turn people. Like, I could see this. You could turn people off from voting for more than one election. Like, you could make people, well, if I'm going to get harassed when I go to vote, I'm not going to vote. The hell with this. My vote doesn't count anyway. That's the excuse a lot of people I speak to use. Yeah. Well, I'm not voting because it doesn't count, right? One vote doesn't matter. But now on top of that, you hear that often. But now, when I go there, I'm going to get harassed, and I'm going to get set off to the side. I'm going to get made to stand there and wait, even though you got a cane and can barely walk, and then set off to the side somewhere to vote. Come on.
Yeah, that's again. It multiplies. The problems multiply as you think about it.
It's definitely not over, and the fact that, like you mentioned Jim Crow laws. Well, you go like every time, right? You go like, so when there was the after the Civil War, the Emancipation Proclamation and all that, right? But then there's Jim Crow laws, and then there's Martin Luther King Jr. time, and then it just goes on and on and on, and it's always, okay, well, we'll concede and let's try this. Okay, we'll concede and let's try this. Okay, we'll back off and let's try this. And now it's, well, what's it going to be? If there's enough outcry about saying, oh, you have to wear a mask to vote, maybe they'll back off of it. They're going to try something else. So the point's not moot. And it doesn't matter who it is. To me, it doesn't matter if you vote blue, if you vote red, if you vote orange. The fact is, your vote should count, and your vote shouldn't be suppressed, and you shouldn't be turned away or made to make an arbitrary decision. Say, oh, if you want to vote, you have to wear a hula hoop tomorrow. No.
Again, it's unreasonable. It's wrong. It is an intimidation tactic. It is suppressive. It is all the things that are wrong that we are, as a nation, have been saying cannot exist. And yet, under this circumstance, with this excuse at the moment, it is happening. And that is a problem.
Yeah.
And I thank you, Jeremiah, for bringing this up to all of us, for at the very least a discussion and a thought that people must take into mind, and I hope to see some further action. Is there any final thing that you wanted to mention? Because I do want to open up the line in case others want to call in and speak about this.
No, sir. I just wanted to say thank you for hearing what I had to say and appreciate your responding. Thank you for your time.
Oh, absolutely. And please do watch the channel. Let us know your thoughts about everything. And as I said, we're going to continue to stay in touch with you to follow up on this as this further develops. Okay?
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.